Hi, everybody. I am with Chrissy from the UK. She just informed me that she's a psychic medium, which I wasn't aware of prior, so that makes me a little excited because I love talking to other mediums. So, if you want to introduce yourself a little bit, and I'll let you take it away.
Okay, so hi, I'm Chrissy, and my group that I'm the founder of is called Gatekeepers Paranormal. We also have a sister group over in the States that is run by a very dear friend of mine, Matt McFarland. I was hoping that he would join us. He may still do, so fingers crossed. I've been investigating the paranormal, crikey, must be properly investigating about 15, 20 years, but being a medium um, pretty much all my life. My earliest memory is when I was about 8, um, seeing things, etc., etc. I'm sure anybody that's a medium will probably have a very distinct memory of when they first realized or remember their first encounter with spirits. Surprisingly, I wasn't afraid. It was somebody that I knew at the time, and I do remember it quite vividly. There was an old lady who lived up the road from us who basically, I used to go to the local shop for her. She was elderly. Um, she became ill, went into hospital. Remembering that I'm only 8, and as I said, I remember this vividly. I woke up during the night and I shared a bedroom with my sister, and there was a chair between my bed and my sister's bed. And I woke up and I saw this shape sat in the chair. Didn't think anything of it, and then obviously as you start to come out of a sleep, um, I recognised her. Initially, it was like, "What's she doing here?" And she looked at me and she smiled and literally just disappeared. Didn't say anything, just smiled at me, but I wasn't afraid. And when I came down in the morning, my parents informed me that she'd passed away. So whether or not she'd come to say goodbye or whatnot, I don't know. But that is my first ever vivid memory of connecting with spirit. Apparently, I saw stuff when I was a lot younger, but I don't remember those incidents. But my parents do, apparently. Um, so I've investigated, crikey, I don't know how many places, hundreds. Been very fortunate to have also visited over in the States as well, South Pittsburgh Hospital. That was quite a number of years ago. However, again, that was something that I don't think I'll ever forget, and I call it my nemesis because I will return, where I got picked up and thrown
Oh,
uh,
oh my
in front
gosh.
of yeah, in front of witnesses. So I have never been so scared, but I also put it down to my own fault for becoming complacent. It always happens to somebody else. It never happens to you, etc., etc. But we were outside the emergency area. The emergency. I don't know if you know South Pittsburgh Hospital.
I've heard of it. I've never actually gotten the opportunity to investigate it, though.
Right, okay. Well, where we could congregate, we were on a break and we were with other guests. I was supporting a friend of mine at the time that was running the event. Excuse me. And basically, we were out having a break. I was sat on a bench, and the next thing, all I can remember is it was almost like somebody put a sack over my head, which was weird. And I remember feeling lifted and the next minute hitting the ground. And I remember just screwing myself up into a ball into the fetal position. Uh, Too scared to open my eyes. When I did, there was just two red eyes staring at me. Um, Got lifted up, and everybody initially were like, "What are you doing?" And it was like I didn't do anything, but as you can imagine, long story short, I flew home. My daughter picked me up from the airport. I had a black eye, grazes and bruises, and yeah, that shook me as well.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
what we found out was allegedly the hospital was built on an old plantation site. where obviously there were slaves who worshipped voodoo or whatever religion at that time they were worshipping, and they left something behind. So yeah, that was a very interesting experience. You did say you wanted paranormal stuff.
Yeah, holy cow, that's just crazy though, to be thrown like that. That's insane. Holy
There,
Toledo.
that it's not the first time I've been thrown. There's a place called Secunda Manor in England, um, and basically that was a lot gentler because I was actually sat on a bed and the mattress lifted and I got thrown off the mattress and told to get out. So yeah, I seem to be getting thrown an awful lot. I very much so in the early years, you know. Since then, I sort of uh, learned to do a lot more protection. uh, don't get
Yeah.
me wrong, I still have the occasional scratch or bite mark or whatever. Um, Not recently, I hasten to add, thankfully. So my experiences, I've explored and investigated. I think the most recent one was a couple of weeks ago, a place called Northleach Old Prison, which dated back to sort of like the 1700s. That was where local people were put for petty crimes, what we would call petty crimes today. Nobody was executed or anything there, but it was sort of like ladies of the night were sent there, stealing a pig, stealing wood, food, um, and even because we looked at some of the records, you were sent there for not going to work,
Oh, wow.
which was which was a bit of a shock. Yeah. So yeah, being rowdy. What was the one that made us all giggle? It was something about you basically being blasphemous towards the church. You got sent there for a couple of months if
Oh,
you went
geez.
against the church. So that was phenomenal, phenomenal. Some of the experience we had. Um, Next to the actual prison was a building called the Police House, which basically before it had changed its usage, it was more cells, and we connected with a prison guard there who was born in, if my memory serves me right, 1842. He died at 48 of consumption. Didn't enjoy his job. He was married, but his wife died in childbirth.
Oh,
Um, so it was all very sad. But there was shadows, things being thrown like little pebbles, which God knows where they came from. Where else have I investigated? Bodmin Jail. I don't know if you've heard of that. Bodmin Jail.
no.
Before what they've done is they've actually refurbished and made it into a hotel. And one of the most haunted areas is the old naval block, which they've now made into a hotel. And the cells are actual hotel rooms that you sleep in. But when we went, it was still ruins. Um, and that's where prisoners, naval prisoners, were put. People were also executed. Again, some phenomenal activity. We find in the naval block, if we sang sort of like sea shanties, what could you do with a drunken sailor, that sort of thing. We got a lot more activity, so there's that place. Shepton Mallet Prison, we did back in August. We investigated there. A lot of the people there, including myself, we saw apparitions. Um, Again, people were executed and hanged there. We could do a vigil actually where people were hanged. They still had obviously it was surrounded for safety, but literally the trap door and the noose and everything. That was quite an eerie place to investigate. Where else? Oh, and I also volunteer at a place called the Ancient Ram Inn, which the building itself is hundreds of years old, but it's actually built on a pagan ritual site. It also is on ley lines which connect to Stonehenge. I strongly suggest people Google it. because the history is phenomenal of that place. When it was in the hands of the last owner. It's now owned by the daughter, as unfortunately Mr. Humphreys, who owned it, passed away a few years ago, sadly, and his daughter has now taken it over. But when he was there, they actually found a child's grave in what is called the men's kitchen, where they found fragments of a dagger. Um, and children's bones. I do know that when I did an investigation there, um, we connected with a young girl who allegedly stated that she'd been sacrificed during a pagan ritual. She was about 12, and basically, it was an honor, and the family, she was held in high esteem. Um, so yeah, she was actually sacrificed.
Oh
So
my
you look a
God.
bit shocked.
Yeah, oh yes. Holy cow.
Where else have I investigated? 30 East Drive, also known as Poltergeist House. The Black Monk, apparently. Have you heard of that one?
Yes, that one I
Yeah,
do know of. Yes.
yeah, 30 East Drive. Um, Investigated there a few times, and you probably also are aware you can go to a place several times, and every time is different.
Hmm.
Sometimes you can go to a place and it's bouncing off the walls, and then you can go there again and it's almost like hardly anything happens. It's very subtle. At
Yeah.
the end of the day, you can't make things happen. It's not like they're performing circus acts. If they want to do anything, they will do it. If they don't, they won't. you know. I also
Hmm.
find that if a place has been visited an awful lot of time by lots of different groups, it's almost like it zaps the energy, so it can be a little bit flat. So obviously with Gatekeepers Paranormal, we basically state that we can guarantee a fun night, but we can't guarantee paranormal activity. That's not something that we can 100% guarantee. Um, and I find it quite amusing. I find that a lot of people expect things, that like they've seen on TV, and
Oh yeah.
we try to explain to them that in a lot of these episodes they've been there for days, and the evidence that they've probably gathered is probably only about 10 minutes long, which over the days that they've been there in total, and they cram that into your hour episode or whatever. There are some really good groups out there, but there's also some that leave you thinking, hmm, really? The one thing that we also do, if we can debunk it, we'll debunk it.
That's
Obviously,
important.
it's very important. We always try and do a baseline sweep, find out where the K2s might indicate electrical wires or electrical interference, uh, so that we can rule that out. But obviously, if you're in a location that's ruins where there's no electricity, um, then it's like, how do you? Why is that going off? And obviously, being a medium, I'm very fortunate because I can either sense or see or feel. I don't, it's really hard to explain unless you are a medium. It's really difficult to put across
Hmm.
how you feel, and I suppose I'm like a jack of all trades, master of none. Spirits connect with me in whichever way they choose to. So sometimes I can physically see them. Sometimes it's almost like they're putting like little video clips in my head. Sometimes you have to interpret what they're trying to tell you. you know I always give as I get it. The most frustrating thing for me is they never, or very very rarely, give me a name. It's
I
almost
don't.
like I don't need to know their name, because the message that they're relaying through me validates who they are to whoever it is I'm talking to. So the only time, and to be perfectly honest, when I do get names, that's when I get nervous, because that usually means that they're not the nicest of spirits, and it's like, look at me. I can tell you who I am, be a bit wary of me, sort of thing. I do have spirit guides, and to be fair, when there is something perhaps a little untoward, The only way I can describe it is there's a door in my head I can see, and they stand either side of the doorway. And if
Okay.
something is a bit negative, they close ranks and block the doorway. And sometimes, if I'm on an investigation, it's almost like I'm piggybacking them. They're on my back and I'm carrying them around. And my colleagues that I do investigations, the minute I start getting backache, they're like, "Oh, here we go." so, so yeah. Um, Going back to the ancient Ram Inn, there isn't a room at that location that doesn't have a spirit or two in it. You've got the bishop's room, which has a bishop in or a monk of some sort. Um, the house before it became a public house, it's had multiple uses, but its first use was where religious people stayed. Um, we've got the witch's room where a young woman took refuge but was taken out and killed as a witch. We have speculation that there are tunnels under the ancient ram that connected to the church, which is a few miles up the road. So you can imagine Mr. Humphreys, who's passed away. I call him Mr. Humphreys because every time I've called him by his first name, I get told off by him when I'm there. So it's almost like, excuse me, you don't know me, I'm Mr. Humphreys to you. Um, so yeah, and also I don't know if you believe in this, but I've seen them for myself. Outside the ancient ram, in the actual land that it's on, are elementals, which to me links to the pagan side. So to me, it's quite normal for me to see some strange looking being, which to me is an elemental. Your earth, fire, water, air, those types of elementals.
Hmm.
Um, there is a gentleman that resides in what we call the barn. It's had multiple uses again. It's the one wall that faces out onto the street is the oldest wall. It dates back to Saxon times, and that area was a chapel. After a chapel, it was either a tannery or a stable with a blacksmith. Also, it was a pub or a tavern, should I say. And the actual building, the ancient ram, was a pub
Oh,
before
cool.
it closed down. Mr. Humphreys made it into a bed and breakfast. And then, obviously, because of the age of the building, as I said, I strongly recommend you Google it and you'll see for yourself. Um, it is. It's a fascinating place, and no two visits are the same. I've been there in the early hours of the morning, I've been there in the morning, I've been there in the afternoon, and activity will happen at any time, night or day. A lot of people feel that, why do we investigate at night time? For me, my belief is that's when our senses are heightened. Spirits can appear at any time, night or day, but it's almost like because it's dark, you're more alert, your hearing, your sight, you're more open to seeing things because you are more aware that it's dark. And I think it's a safety thing, isn't it? You become more aware in nighttime because you need to see where you're going, and that's where you might see more activity. I'm fortunate because I can see them day, night, whatever time of day, if they so choose to show themselves. So yeah, do you have any questions? I'm rabbiting on here.
Oh, you're fascinating. I do actually have quite a few questions. So I'm going to ask you about your mediumship, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Um, so you described exactly how I see things with the videos playing in your head, stuff like that. But when you see
hmm
apparitions, do you see them in your mind's eye or are they like right in front of you?
Both.
Okay.
Sometimes they'll be like in my mind's eye. Sometimes they are literally stood next to the person or in the locality that I'm in. Um, and they will vary. They can be slightly transparent or they can to me appear almost solid. It really does depend on one, what the energy is like.
Hmm.
I think the stronger the presence, the more. solid they look to me, the more tired I am afterwards. The joke within our group is we get the paranormal hangover. So you do your paranormal investigation, and then the following day you are totally drained. So whilst you're not physically drinking spirits, you're drained by spirits. So it's a paranormal hangover. That's what we call it anyway. And it's like, oh, how's the paranormal hangover? Go away, leave me alone. I will say that when we go out investigating, which is absolutely amazing, we're very fortunate to be able to go to all the places that we go to. Um, I must admit that the 3, 4 a.m. drive home and the conversations are equally as enjoyable, usually utter gobbledygook, bizarre conversations, talking about the investigation, but obviously some very random, strange conversations that we can have in cars, as we
Oh yeah.
travel home, because we could be like 2, 3 hours on the road driving back home, so we turn at sort of like 6, 7 o'clock in the morning when we actually get home from some of these locations. So you can imagine some of the conversations, especially when you're tired, can be complete and utter gobbledygook, but hilarious.
Oh
I'm just
yes.
thankful. I'm just thankful that we never record any of them because they probably you wouldn't be able to hear them. You certainly wouldn't be able to air them on your show on your podcast. Yeah, a lot of swearing and probably some very I can give you a random sort of thing. We would change lyrics to songs. For example, the 3 degrees. You heard of the 3 degrees?
Mm-mm.
No. Again, Google. They sang when will I see you again? So we would change the lyrics to when will we go ghost hunting again? Those sorts of weird type lyrics, So yeah,
That's
as you
awesome.
can imagine. So yeah, carry on. What other questions have you got for me? I'm just going to have a quick drink before I cough.
Oh dear. Well, I'm actually going through a investigation hangover myself. I just went investigating last night, so believe me, I completely understand what you're saying.
Okay, where
Um,
did you investigate?
we went to Wildwood Sanitarium in Salamanca, New York.
Oh, right, okay.
It's an up
I've
and
heard of
coming
it.
popular place. Yes.
Yeah, I have heard of it. So,
It
um,
was,
what
it
what
was
places
interesting.
have you? Go on, sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
What places have you heard of in England that you're aware of that are potentially haunted hotspots
Honestly,
that you
not a
know
whole lot. Just like I just the castles and things have always intrigued me over there. So that's just something that I want to go and just see, even if I don't get to investigate, because I love that
of?
stuff and I've always been drawn to England. I don't know why, but
I could it could be something in your ancestral line somewhere. Maybe one of your ancestors came over from England. You never know. A lot of us did come over there.
true, yes.
Um, Castle wise, Oxford Castle, I've investigated. Chillingham Castle, I've investigated. Um, Chillingham is, again, that dates back hundreds of years. That had a torture chamber and everything. St Breville's Castle in the Forest of Dean, not far from where I lived. We had poltergeist activity there where a door was barricaded. We had to get back in, and chest of drawers were on the bunk beds, and a massive blanket coffer, which is a huge wooden box, had been pushed in front of the door with a fire extinguisher on the top. That castle actually's got an oubliette. Are you aware of what one of those is?
Mm.
It's French, and basically it's a bit. It's like an empty well. That's the best way I can describe it. Where basically oubliette is to forget. Basically, you were chucked down there and forgotten about, and you died. Putting it bluntly, as a punishment.
Oh my gosh.
So that's an
Wow.
oubliette. That's a very simplistic way of putting it. It's a big hole, deep hole in the ground, um, and you were chucked down there. And if the fall didn't kill you, you probably would have a broken leg, but you'd die basically because you'd be forgotten about. That was your punishment.
Oh, wow.
Um, so yeah, I've investigated quite a varied variety of locations, from castles to houses to pubs to just some very bizarre places, some schools, some old schools, you name it. I've pretty much investigated it.
That's
There's a few
amazing.
places that are on my bucket list. I would love to do Dover Castle. I did make inquiries a couple of years ago if we could do the Tower of London. Great if you've got £15,000.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so that went unfortunately a little bit out of our price range. I think the downside for us over here is that a lot of places that you can hire to investigate, because COVID hit everybody so hard, they've put their prices up to recoup money that they've lost, um, money that is required to for repairs and maintenance, because obviously during COVID, um, some of them fell into a little bit more disrepair because people couldn't work and do any renovations or anything, which is very sad. But places that were sort of like a few £100s have now gone to sort of like nearly 1,000, and some are even over £1,000 to hire. So that's probably
Wow.
sort of like $1,300, $1,400, something like that. I'm not quite sure what the difference is between the pound and the dollar exchange rate, but yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
ours
lot
is a
of
little
money.
higher, but I'm not sure the exact rate either. But holy
Yeah,
cow.
they can be very expensive. And obviously, money is tight for everybody. So, the one thing that we do, because we are a non-profit group, none of us get paid for any of the investigations that we do. Um, we volunteer our time. We also loan out all of our equipment. And that is everything from K2s, portals, SLS, um, spirit box. Um, do like doing the Estes method, which I'm sure you're probably aware of.
Yep.
Um, I think the best ones that we've done are where you have two Estes going, sat back to back, blindfolded. We've done that at the Ancient Ram, and it's almost like the spirits are having a conversation with each other. It can be quite hilarious. Um, they can also not be very nice, as in like usually saying nasty things about us.
Oh, geez.
Um, but at the end of the day, I'm sure you're very much aware with investigations, you get some really nice spirits, you can get some really grumpy ones, and then you've got some that you're not quite sure, are they a spirit or are they just a negative entity? I'm a very strong believer that negativity breeds negativity. And if you're at a location where nothing but bad things have happened, that in itself can manifest a negative energy, if that makes sense.
Yep, it does. Absolutely. I have a
So
similar thought process.
yeah, that's how I look at it. So, um, any other questions?
Do you think, because you've investigated over here and obviously where you are, which one is more extreme, I guess, or does it not make a difference? Do you think it's kind of even?
I think UK is more extreme in what we do. Things may have changed because it's a few years since I investigated over in the States. Um, People over here, I'm not one for gadgets because I feel that it distracts from you actually seeing and feeling and sensing things. So things that, K2s, yes, because they don't make a noise, but the REM pods and that beep, and people are so focused on looking at flashing lights. Boo Bear, I cannot stand Boo Bear. No disrespect. The accent is awful, and you're just getting into the investigation, and Boo Bear suddenly comes out with, "Do you want to tell me a story?" That sort of thing, and it irritates me. It really does. I want to chuck Boo Bear. I'm sorry. But a lot of people are so focused on listening to the spirit box, which I've now got a portal which literally completely gets rid of the white noise. The white noise does my head in. It really irritates me after a while. It gives me a headache, to be perfectly honest. Um, we do use the Ouija board, but it is opened and closed properly. We open it before anybody goes on it, and we have free time, and that the Ouija board is manned at all times, as in like supervised. Nobody during the actual investigation that our hosts go on any of the equipment. That way we can't be accused of faking anything, which I think is very, very important. We're not a business, I hasten to add. We're not an events company. We are a hobby group. We try and keep the prices low, but all the money that we raise pays for the venue that we're going to. We all pay out of our own pocket for the public liability insurance that we have to have. We also pay for all the drinks and snacks that we provide free of charge to everybody that comes on the event. So, we're very mindful, and obviously we are very respectful to spirit as well. We don't goad spirits. I think that's not a good thing to do. Don't get me wrong, if a spirit is rude to me, I'll be rude back, but I won't go in to rile them up, you know. Um, I always seem to connect with spirits that are of a religious nature that really dislike me, and I put that down to the fact that if I was living in their time, I either would have been hanged as a witch, or or I wouldn't have been long on the earth, let's put it that way. They would have got rid of me one way or another. I've been name called numerous things, from whore of whatever to lots of other expletives, which obviously I won't come out with because that's not appropriate. But you can imagine I've been called quite a few names. And it is actually water off a duck's back now. But when you're first called a harlot and whore of such and such, it's like, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
But when, yeah, it's sort of like, I've been really polite to you. But a lot of the time I find it's because I can see them and that annoys them.
Really? You think it
So
annoys them? That's an interesting take.
the ones that dislike me, the ones that are the grumpy ones, yeah,
Okay,
it's
gotcha.
almost like the ones that are pleasant, it's almost like they want to share their story, they want to tell you. And then you have those that it's like, what the hell are you doing here? This is my space, get out. They're the ones that are usually the rude ones, the not so nice ones. And then obviously you get the, I don't know about you, if you ever been to a location where you walk into a room and you just have to get the hell out of that room,
Oh,
and
yes.
it's not because you've connected with the spirit. You just walk in there and you're like hit with a wall of negativity, and it's like, nah, I can't go in that room. And it will take me a little while to build up to feel strong enough to go in there. It's almost like the hackles come up, and it's like, I need to make sure that I'm 100% grounded and I've got 100% protection on me before I'm going anywhere near that area, because whatever's in there is not nice.
Happened to me
So,
last night.
oh, right, okay, yeah.
I kept telling
Fortunately,
everybody. Go
yeah.
ahead.
Fortunately, yes, there are lots of locations in the UK where there is a little bit of negativity, but then if you think of the history and some of the locations, what they were used for, the executions, the murders, things like that, the murderers and whatever. Um, but no, every investigation is totally different. You just have to go in with an open mind. Um, and even though I am a medium, and the running joke is I see dead people, um, is very much not everything is paranormal.
Yeah.
You go into a house and you hear clicking and whatnot. Well, if they have got heating, which some places do, it's not all derelict and freezing cold and wet and dark and damp. Um, you'll hear clicking, and if it's a wooden structured building, it's because the wood is shrinking. It's when you hear tapping when you've asked, can you tap twice, and you get two taps. That's when you start thinking, okay. But, the amount of people that think, oh, that's paranormal. I can hear scratching on the window, and you pull the curtain back and there's a branch scratching on the glass. That's actually happened to me. Because it's like that is too succinct, that is too clear. It does sound like somebody scratching on the glass. And literally, we pulled the curtain back and there was a branch literally moving up and down on the glass pane. And I went, sorry, guys, not paranormal. It's a tree. So, like I've said, I think it's very important to, one, be very open-minded. Um, I can't say I'm not surprised anymore because every time I go, there's always something that makes me go, oh, wow, or makes me think. And then there are times where I have a lot of self-doubt as a medium. It's like, why am I getting this? Is this a memory? It can't be. I've never been to this place before. And the one thing that we don't do is research the place. This is my biggest frustration when you see programs on the TV. They've done research. So the first thing they do is they go in, they've researched or picked up on a name on a John Smith. And the first thing they go in is go, John Smith, are you here? And it's like, wouldn't it be better and more um, interesting to not know anything and a John Smith comes forward, you then research and go, oh wow, he actually did live there, he was a person, then I've got all this history, I'm going to go in and I'm going to say, hi John, it's only me, come and talk to me, and who's to say that is John Smith? Because spirits can play tricks. You do get the
Yes.
jesters and the tricksters. Um, I'm always wary when children come through. That I'm 9 times out of 10, yes, it is a child, but the odd occasion it's not a child. And those are the ones where it's like, mm. We have had incidences, and even though I'm a medium, I can be quite skeptical, believe it or not. Bit bizarre, I know, a medium, and I'm skeptical. But we had to get rid of a Ouija board that we used because every time we went on it, a certain thing would come through. Let's just say it was a four letter named person thing that began with Z. I'm not even going to say the thing's name, but every single time we opened it, that thing came through.
Oh,
And
wow.
it came through initially as a child. We actually got rid of that Ouija board because every single time we used it, that thing would come through. So, so yeah. Have you
It's
got any more
amazing how
questions?
I mean, I just think we are so similar in how we operate, and it's fascinating to me because I'm the same
Really?
way. I mean, I just sort of accepted my mediumship abilities. I've always been able to see ghosts, but I was under the impression that everybody could see ghosts until I met people that are like, you're nuts." Like, well, probably, but no.
It, it took me a long time to sort of like come out, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Um, I didn't want to be carted off to the funny farm, as we call it over here, with by men in white coats, sort of thing. Took a long time. My eldest daughter didn't become aware until she was an adult. Basically, it's not something that it was something that I kept close to my heart. It's like, yeah, I would see stuff, but it so transpires that when we've done investigations together, it's almost like our senses are heightened. She's more an empath,
Okay.
um, but when we're together, it's almost like we sync. So she picks up on the emotions, and it's almost like we reinforce what we're connecting to. And she can be in a completely different room, and we can still connect. So it's very interesting to say the least. I will say that.
I mean,
So
it's neat to connect with people like you, for example, that explains exactly how I feel, and I'm like, okay, maybe I'm okay. Maybe I'm not as crazy as I think.
Oh, I went through, I lost the, or I don't know whether I lost the ability or I shut down. I went through a traumatic experience. I won't bore you with the details. And I shut down for a couple of years. And then something happened that started it all up again. Um, and I thought I was going mad because I was seeing things and it was like, why am I seeing this? I maybe I've got mental health issues, or do you know what I mean? Because you do think
100%.
you think you are going absolutely crazy, you
Yeah.
know? And I was put in contact with, long story short, when it all came back, it was like the floodgates just opened. And there's a location where I live in the town. Um, it's a multi-story car park, and it was renowned. It went through a phase where a lot of jumpers used it to end their lives. And I can remember walking past it and seeing this person literally leaning up, sat on the floor, leaning up with their back against the wall, with their head all caved in. And I'm like, no, no, I'm going mad, you know?
Mm.
Um, and another time I got on a bus and I was stood up and the driver was looking at me weirdly and he said, why aren't you sat down? I said, well, there's nowhere to sit. And he said, the bus is empty. There was only three other people on the bus. And I'm like, what?
Gosh.
So, so yeah, but I luckily I got put in contact with, sadly she's passed away now, but a very good medium who was able to assist me in tuning, fine tuning. And then something very profound happened, whereas now I'm classed as a shamanic practitioner. Um,
Okay.
I can also do previous life progression, energy, soul collector, that sort of thing. You know, fragmented souls, putting them back together. But that's not something that I do for gatekeepers. That's just something. It's like a sideline. Well, I follow the shamanic pathway. Let's put it that way.
That is so cool. That is awesome.
So that is basically me and gatekeepers. I have an amazing team of hosts. Um, as I said, been running gatekeepers over 10 years. Um, ran another group, um, worked with somebody where they were a big events company, worked for them, hence why I was able to come over to the States and investigate there. So, yeah, the one thing I will always stress, and this always makes me smile, and I don't know how your listeners or how you feel about it, nobody can ever say they are an expert in the paranormal.
Yep. I 110% agree with that.
You can be very well experienced and you can be very, very knowledgeable, but the only way you'll become um, an expert is to die and come back and tell you. And nine times out of ten, I don't think there's a lot of volunteers out to do that, really.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to be the first to volunteer.
No, no, and I don't although after having COVID, I came close to it. It's not to
Oh,
volunteer, but I felt like I was going to die. But no, yeah, no one will ever be an expert in the paranormal. Extremely knowledgeable, extremely experienced in paranormal investigative techniques, and potentially um, knowledge of negative energies. I don't like calling them demons. That is religious connotations, and I'm not going to knock anybody's religion, but to me, they are negative energies. They are not, in my opinion, demons, but that's just my personal belief.
I
Um,
the same
they
way.
do exist. They do exist,
Mhm.
but most people will refer to them as demons. Um, Demonologists. There seems to be an awful lot of alleged demonologists popping up all over the place, which they've done an online course, which then qualifies them to be a demonologist. I'm sorry, But to be a demonologist, a true demonologist, takes years and years and years. Not a 6 month course that you can do online and get a certificate.
No, I
Sorry,
agree with that.
I don't want to burst anybody's bubble. I'm also very much, when I talk to people, I don't know if you're the same. If people are going to see, we just call them mediums over here. We don't call them psychic mediums. Um, but if you're going to see a medium, the one bit of advice that I always give is don't give them your life history.
Yep.
It's yes or no answers, because whilst there are some phenomenal mediums out there, there are also some amazing people readers out there as well.
Yep. Yep. I
So
say
I
that
very
often.
strong, yeah, yeah, and the amount of stories that I've heard where they've gone to see a medium and they've gone, oh yeah, they picked up on my Aunt Bess. She described the woman. I went, oh, that's my Aunt Bess. And she went, yes, you're correct. And I'm like, really? I sort of cringe. I did try before I followed the shamanic path going to spiritualist church. That totally deflated me. Again, maybe it was just a really bad experience. Like, again, I'm not knocking the spiritualist church. I'm sure that there's some fantastic ones out there. They had a guest speaker. I'm sat at the back minding my own business because I like to stay in the shadows, so to speak. I'm not somebody that is in your face sort of thing. Hi, I'm Chrissy. I'm a medium. No, I just go up to I just go up to people that are and I'll just come out with random stuff and they're looking at me like, and then my colleagues will say, we do apologise, but if she connects with spirit, she will just come up to you and she'll just give you the random stuff that she gets. That's me. Um, but I did go to a spiritualist circle, and the guest medium was going, I'm picking up somebody who's with us tonight that has a mobility issue. And I'm looking around the room, and there's a woman sat in the front row with a Zimmer frame, like a walking frame, and yet they homed in on her, and I'm like, that's strange. Not, and unfortunately, I found that that particular reading I felt was picking on somebody extremely vulnerable and wanted I do private readings, but I do have my own code of conduct and certain lines I won't cross. Um, no disrespect, but I won't give somebody a reading that I am made aware of that may have potentially mental health issues. That is one thing that I will not do. Um, and then there are times when you do a reading and they're disappointed because the person that they wanted to come through didn't come through. And I try to explain it's not like picking up the telephone, dialing a number and going, hi, can I speak to such and such because I got your daughter here, or
Right.
you can only connect with whoever wants to come through, and that's it. If person really wants to connect with their loved one that's still living, they'll come through. But I'm very much a believer that spirits, that especially those where we go to these locations, a lot of them are from a long time ago. You don't tend to hear of that many modern hauntings. And again, I think that stems back to um, religious beliefs. If you think before TV and everything, religion was very strong throughout the world. And people would pay the church so that they wouldn't land up in purgatory. And the more money you paid, you were guaranteed your seat next to, you know, the go through the pearly gates and everything. And so people would pay the church. And I think perhaps those that are left behind, either in their belief, were too scared because maybe they thought that they were going to land up in purgatory. They have unfinished business. Um, they're searching for people that they're no longer connected to because they've moved on to a better place and they haven't realized. There are also spirits that actually don't even know that they've passed, which
Oh
is
yeah.
quite sad. That's quite sad when you come across, sort of like they don't know that they've died. That's quite sad. Um, Obviously, I have had opportunity and I have helped a few to the light, if that makes sense. But unfortunately, if I did that at every single location, I wouldn't be very popular, and I probably wouldn't get be able to hire out certain venues if I go in and clear all the buildings of all the spirits and whatnot. So, we are very respectful, and a lot of them don't want to go anyway. So, they're there for a reason. Whether it's they're too scared or for whatever reason. I'm also a strong believer in the stone tape theory as well. There's a lot of places where people go, oh my gosh, it's haunted, and I've been there, and it's residual energy. It's almost, I try and explain it along the lines of, if I lived in a house and I went up and down the stairs at the exact time every single day for 50 years, there's every possibility that after I've gone and I'm no longer here, you might see me going up the stairs. I'm not there, it's residual. It's because I did it
Right.
at the exact same time every single day. The same as if something really traumatic, like a major train crash where multiple people were killed, you hear on the anniversary of that train crash, because it was such a massive impact and almost like a dent on the anniversary of that crash, you might hear the crash. There are so many theories and everything going on, but that's just my personal beliefs. So how was that? Any more questions?
I don't think so. You answered quite a few of them actually with that last s- well, answer that you gave. So I think that I appreciate your time and taking the time to talk to me. And you had some really fascinating stories, and we really align with a lot of our beliefs too. So that's cool.
As I will reiterate, I have got nothing against anybody's religion, and I will never badmouth anybody's religion. I'm
Oh,
just talking about
absolutely.
my own personal beliefs. Um, so I just want to make that very clear. I'm very respectful of who people believing in whatever they want to believe. If that helps them and makes them feel good, that's fantastic, because I think that's the one thing that the world needs is more positivity. There's too
Yeah,
much negativity out there, and it's too easy to become negative,
I
far
agree
too
with that.
easy.
Yeah,
So, don't get me wrong, there are times when I'm perhaps feeling a little bit negative, but I think that's everybody at some point in their lives. But this has been an absolute pleasure. And obviously, if you ever do manage to come over to the UK, you're going to have to hook up with me, and I will have to take you to the Ancient Ram Inn.
I would absolutely love that. And the same goes if you ever make it back to the States.
I plan to, just when depends on the pennies and whether
I
or
got
not I can save up enough. So, but it's been an absolute pleasure, and I've thoroughly enjoyed this. So, thank you for inviting me along, and I hope your listeners will enjoy listening to this.
Thank you. And absolutely the same goes for you. Again, I appreciate your time and I hope you feel better.
I'm on the road to recovery, so yeah, so yeah.
Um,
So, will this go out? When will this go out?
Probably later today.
Okay, will I be able to share it with my group?
Absolutely. I will send you the link when I post it and I will actually give you like the clean copy of it too. So
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you.
you're
And
welcome.
if ever you want to hook up again, I'm more than happy to do so. We've got some events lined up for 2026, so that's all exciting. We're going back to Northfleet Old Prison again. We've got a museum of haunted artifacts we're going to. We're waiting to hear about North Fort down in Torquay. We're waiting to hear back from them. So, as I said, we're only a hobby group, so we only do about 4 or 5 events a year ourselves. We're trying to
Right.
build them back up since COVID, um, but we still do sort of like our own little group investigations as well. So, but
That's
as I
awesome.
said, thank you. So thank you so much for your time, and thank you um, for inviting me along.
Oh, of
And
course, and thank you as well.
and happy to catch up with you again sometime.
I will absolutely would love that. I will definitely be in
Okay.
touch.
Okay then. Well, thank you for your time, and wow, that was an hour. Wow, that's gone quick.
Yes. All right.
Well, you take care. Thank you.
You too. Thank you again.
Okay, bye bye.
Bye.